Welcome to Breakup Cheater, where real hearts break, truths surface, and every story cuts deep. Here we share raw tales of betrayal, love lost, and the strength it takes to rise again. If you've ever loved, lost, or learned the hard way, you're in the right place. The first moment I knew something was wrong wasn't when she ignored me. It was the way she laughed. That high, practiced laugh I'd heard before, but never directed at me in months. We were at her boss's party, a glittering event full of people in suits too expensive for my taste and smiles that never reached their eyes. I had dressed up for her. Black blazer, the tie she'd chosen, even polished my shoes. Things I never cared much for, but she said it mattered. "He's a big deal, Daniel. I need you to be on your best behavior." So I went thinking I was supporting her career. But the moment we stepped into that house, no, that mansion, I felt like a prop she had reluctantly brought along. "Dan, this is Robert," she said, barely touching my arm as she introduced me to her boss, a tall man with perfectly slicked back hair and a glass of something amber in his hand. His eyes skimmed over me like I was a coat rack, not her husband. And she didn't correct him when he called me David 10 minutes later. The party was a swirl of expensive cologne and hollow conversations. She drifted from group to group like smoke, always 2 steps ahead of me, always laughing at someone else's joke, touching someone else's arm to emphasize her point. When I tried to join in, she cut me off with a polite smile. "Oh, Daniel, could you grab me another glass of wine?" I fetched it, thinking maybe I was overanalyzing. But as the night stretched on, the realization sank in. I didn't exist there. Not to her. Not to them. It wasn't just being ignored. It was how she shone when I wasn't beside her. With me she was neutral. Without me she was radiant. I stood near the glass wall overlooking the city, watching her tilt her head, her fingers lingering on Robert's arm just a fraction longer than was appropriate. That laugh again. The one she used to save for me. My chest tightened. Around midnight, I stepped outside into the cold balcony air. I scrolled my phone just to give my hand something to do. And that's when I saw it, on her screen, a message preview flashing before she locked it. "Can't wait for them to leave." Sent to Robert. Not a group chat. Not a work memo. Personal message. I didn't react. Not right away. I didn't want to be that husband, the one who accuses without proof, who makes a scene at a party full of powerful people. So I waited. I observed. And I realized how perfectly she had planned this. She didn't need me there except to look respectable. "Married women rise slower in that office," she once said, "unless their husband looks solid, reliable, stable." That's all I was. Placeholder. When she came out to the balcony, cheeks flushed, wine glass half empty, she smiled like nothing was wrong. "You okay?" "You look pale," she said, brushing invisible lint from my sleeve. "I'm fine," I replied, my voice colder than the air between us. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and she didn't care. The moment that broke me wasn't a fight. It wasn't a slap or a scream. It was when Robert came out, placed his hand casually on her lower back, and she didn't flinch. Didn't move away. She introduced me as if I were some distant acquaintance. "Oh, Robert, this is Dan. He's in software." Again. I extended my hand. He didn't even take it. And she didn't correct him. That's when I walked away. I didn't make a scene. I didn't shout or demand answers. I just left the glass of untouched whiskey on the table, slipped my jacket on, and walked out of that mansion. She didn't follow. Not that night. The drive home was silent except for the hum of the engine and the ringing in my ears. Every mile between us felt like a wall rising higher and higher. I sat in our living room until 3 a.m., the house dark and quiet, waiting for the door to open. When she finally came in, her heels dangling from her fingers, she didn't look surprised to see me awake. "You left," she said simply, like I had broken her routine. "You didn't notice for 3 hours," I replied. She tried to talk her way through it. Said I was imagining things, that Robert was just her boss, that I was reading too much into it. But the text message. She brushed it off. "It wasn't about you. No remorse. No fear. Just annoyance. And that was the moment I realized something. I didn't matter to her anymore. Not as a partner. Not as a man. I was an accessory she had outgrown. The next morning I didn't rage. I didn't plead. I quietly called my lawyer, the same one who helped my brother during his divorce, and I started moving my accounts. She didn't notice. For 3 weeks she didn't notice. She stayed late at work more often, started wearing perfume I didn't recognize, smiled at her phone more than she smiled at me. And I let her. I let her dig the hole herself. The night I left for good, it was raining. I packed a single suitcase, my important documents, and the one photo of us that still meant something. Our wedding picture, not because of her but because of who I was that day. Man who believed. I left her a note on the kitchen table. You wanted a husband who makes you look stable. Now you can look strong alone. No accusations. No drama. Just the truth. She called me 12 times that night. I didn't answer. The next morning a text. You're overreacting. Come home. Funny how a place can stop being that overnight. Weeks turned to months. She tried to reach out, but only when it affected her image. At work, people started whispering. Robert got transferred after an HR complaint from another woman. I wasn't the only one noticing the after-parties he threw. Her little empire began to crumble. But by then I was gone. New city, new apartment, a quiet life without the constant ache of being invisible in my own marriage. Sometimes people ask me if I miss her. I miss who I thought she was. I miss the nights we stayed up planning a future I didn't know was already being rewritten without me. Do I hate her? No. I just don't care anymore. And that, I think, is worse than hate. I heard she left the company 6 months later. Rumor was, Robert stopped protecting her once the whispers turned to complaints. I didn't reach out. I didn't gloat. Because walking away wasn't revenge. It was release. There's a moment every betrayed person remembers. Not the discovery, not the fight, but the decision. The decision to stop trying to be seen. Mine happened on that balcony, with city lights glittering below and her laughter floating somewhere inside, belonging to a man who wasn't me. I turned my back on it then. And I never looked back. Betrayal doesn't always shout. It often whispers while you stand in the same room. Have you ever stayed somewhere you were invisible, just to avoid the pain of leaving? Share your thoughts below, and if this story hit you hard, subscribe for more real, raw stories of heartbreak, resilience, and starting over.